Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so I'll get started. And all of this will be available recorded for anyone that hasn't been able to make it. So thanks for coming along. So really, this is just a chance for me to talk through some of the things that were discussed on Thursday evening with regards to Year 10 pupils joining sixth form. And really, I'm just going to talk through some of the things that we discussed on the evening and give a bit of information. And there'll be some slides that will accompany this to be sent out alongside too. I'll sort of caveat all of this by saying, obviously, the most important thing with regards to looking ahead to sixth form is having those one-to-one conversations. So anybody that's watching this either live or recorded, the information that I'll give you is quite general about beads and why you might come here as a sixth form, what life is like, and the kinds of things people study. But that will just be the beginning, and then hopefully you'll go on to then have conversations with me, your pupil's tutor, your child's tutor, or their subject teachers to deepen and then extend that conversation. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of sort of beads as a school and a sixth form and what you might be thinking. And then I'm going to go into talking a little bit more about the academic highlights, talk a little bit about what life as a sixth former is like in terms of why it's different to being at secondary school, and then look at sort of what the next steps are for you as families, and then go into some common questions and pieces of information that we tend to get asked about sixth form. So I suppose really just to start with a bit of context, that you're now at a time where Year 10 pupils are a real time of change. They're no longer those small biddable toddlers that went off to join primary school and going through that painful moment of leaving home to join school for the first time, and they're actually becoming often much more tricky, much more demanding pupils that have their own strong sense of mind, and so it can be quite a tricky time because parents will have their own ideas about what they want their children to do for sixth form. Pupils themselves will have very strong ideas, and that's getting influenced by their peers around them, as well as what you're saying at home. And I suppose the reason why I'm doing this and why we're doing all the things we're doing at Bees is to try and make that decision as easy as possible, whether that is a decision about what subjects to study or the destination of sixth form. I hope that my job can be to oil those wheels, as it were, between the conversation between you, your child, and us as a school. And of course, you'll be thinking about why send somebody to Beads. You've been here for the lower school, and there is undoubtedly a kind of natural pause in education when you reach the end of year 11. And some people see that as a time to review and think about what it is that they're going to go on and do. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about why I think Beads sixth form is such a strong sixth form in our area, and the things that we do that try and make that a really inspiring place to study. So I suppose the first thing to talk about is academic results. We're not a school which is, I would consider, a hothouse, or a school which seeks to beast their pupils into achieving incredible results at all costs. But because of the way that we approach our education as one that's nurturing and that finds the strengths for everybody, we are a school that achieves really, really good results. And so when I share the slides with you later on, you'll be able to look at these in more detail. But just to give you a headline figure, that last year in 2022, 26% of our pupils, of their grades, were an A star. So of all the grades that we've got of these pupils at the end of their sixth form, 26% of them were an A star, and 49%, so just under half of all the grades at A level and BTEC at Beads, were an A or an A star grade. So we're incredibly proud of that. That means that of all the grades we're giving out, half of them are the best grades that you can get. And hopefully that's a testament to what we're doing in the sixth form here, which is setting really, really high standards and making it really rigorous. Obviously, that's not just what Beads is about. We're here primarily to receive a good education, and we believe that as well as driving you towards really exceptional grades, you need that support, nurture, and compassion. And that doesn't go away at sixth form. And if anything, your relationship with your tutor is only going to strengthen. Pupils that are in the school already and stay on tend to change tutors when they go into sixth form. And the reason we do that is because we feel like we have staff members who are experts in doing sixth form tutoring. They know the relationship that they need to have with those pupils, and also they might be experts in looking ahead to university applications and how to guide pupils through that. But that support is still going to be there. They're still going to meet their tutor every single morning. They're still going to be part of the house system, and that support in terms of getting nurtured and having that compassionate approach to education is one that we really value in the sixth form here as much as we do in the lower school, even if the relationship is slightly different. And I always find that really compounded at this time of year. We, at the end of the upper six, we send out, we create, with the help of the pupils, a leavers book. And this is a book with all the photos of the year in, and they leave quotes and messages for teachers. And I've compiled a few of the messages just to show you when I send out the information of these, of those kinds of messages. But the relationship with the tutor is always the one which is so astounding and really sort of warms the cockles, as it were, to read that, because that relationship in the sixth form with the tutor at Bede is something that is really, really strong. So we've got the academics, obviously. We've got that relationship with the tutor and the pastoral care that we pride ourselves on, and we do still expect all of our sixth form pupils to engage fully in our activities programme. There are some sixth form only activities throughout the year, and there are also particular times in the year where we're doing sixth form focused activities that help extend and develop them. So all of the kind of sports, creative arts, performing arts, and academic activities that you would study in the lower school are still available in the sixth form. 120 activities per term that pupils can take part in. But we also offer sixth form specific things. So this term, for example, with my English A-level pupils and some art A-level pupils, we've been visiting museums and galleries to kind of build up an understanding of art in Sussex, and that's a sixth form only activity. We also run things throughout the year which are focused just for sixth form. So part of my job as sixth form engagement head is to bring in outside speakers to talk to the sixth formers, and these vary every year. We do have some returning ones. Some of them cross over with our PSHE, or personal social and health education requirements, but some of them are more careers focused, some of them more employability skills focused. We've actually just come to the end of Futures Week last week, which is a week where we take the lower six off timetable for the week, and they spend time researching universities and preparing their application, meeting employers, meeting university lecturers, and also practicing a whole load of employability skills and a whole load of living skills. So we have them repairing cars, we have them baking bread, as well as building up a LinkedIn profile and those kinds of things. So these activities are things that we would have available in the sixth form, which you don't get at the lower school, when it's about preparing pupils for life when they leave the school and they're going to go off to university or go into the world of work. So this is a major part of what we do. And that's something that myself and Mrs. Franks, who's the head of careers, we're working a lot on that. As always, getting feedback from the pupils about what areas of sort of work or what areas of degree programs they're interested in finding out more about, and making sure that we have speakers in. Most of that's concentrated in Futures Week, but actually Mrs. Franks does an amazing job of dotting those throughout the year. So yes, we really strive for high academic results. Yes, pastoral care is really, really important. And of course, activities are still a central part of what we do at Bede sixth form, which I think is probably fairly unique compared to other schools which are offering further education, A-levels and BTECs. So I guess that's a bit from me that you might expect, which is why I think Bede is a really good sixth form. I just wanted to give you a sense now of where we are in the process of applying for sixth form, and what's kind of coming next, I suppose. So pupils have been studying their GCSE courses obviously this year, so we're pretty much a year under our belts with GCSEs, and obviously all of the year 10s have done their mock exams now and got the results of those, and they'll be feeling mixed. I'm sure that there'll be lots of celebrations going on, but people might be looking at those results and thinking, I know I can do better, or I want to do better when I get to sixth form. At the same time as that, they've also sat in sort of taster A-level and BTEC lessons last week. They managed to do 8 different subjects where they're able to try those out, and that's, again, hopefully giving them some of an idea about where their strengths lie and where those dovetail with where their interests lie and what it might be like to study those things. Those taster sessions are really useful for a couple of reasons. First of all, it creates a relationship between the pupil and the teacher, and that's a really important thing, which I'll say a little bit more about later on. But it also will give the pupils the basic information they need to know about studying that course. They need to know about what grade they need to get at GCSE to get onto that course, and I'll say a bit more about that at the end. And they also find out a bit about how they're being assessed on that course, and they can compare that to how they're getting on now, because some courses at sixth form, BTEC courses, are going to be more coursework based, and some are going to be more exam based. So that's given them a bit of a taster of that. It does still feel really early. We're not even into the exam year for lower school, but as you will know, if you've looked at other colleges and sixth forms, this whole process does start now, because it's a really tricky one to get right. And there's a lot of thinking and discussions that need to go on as pupils progress from year 10 to year 11 to help them make the right choice. So although we're starting early and we're giving out lots of information now, we're not expecting you to give us any kind of information until next school year and during that autumn term. So in September 23, really the focus will turn to academics, as it should, and tutors will be working with your children to help them create revision schedules, get them along to the right support schedules off the back of how they performed in these Year 10 mocks, where they need to focus on, with a view to then in November having another round of mock exams. So there'll be a set formal assessments again in November 2023. Around the same time as that, we'll have another open morning. So on a Saturday morning, a more traditional open morning where departments will be open all around the school and you can tour around. And so having done the assessments, worked through the first half of the autumn term, or longest term, and then attending that morning, that should start to finalise any questions you might have about subjects and what those subjects entail. And then really, in terms of making options, we're looking at getting those in during the spring term. So we'll send an options form out at Christmas time for you to then discuss over the holiday and then start to send back to us. And we'll build a timetable around that. There's a few other good things that happen in spring term of 2024. So we'll have our maximising success workshop. So we'll be preparing the Year 11s for revision. We'll go through more kind of mock assessments in the early part of that term to give really formal experience of those exams again, a bit like what the lower fifths have had this year. And then really by the end of that term, we'll complete courses and start revising. We then get our results out in August 2024. So I think the provisional date at the moment is the 22nd, but that might change. And even then, we might still be having conversations, you and I, about subject combinations and what's going to be best depending on how people have performed at GCSE. So really all that to say that we are quite early on in the process at the moment. And it's okay for pupils not to really know necessarily what they want to do. And really, if you're starting to have a conversation at home and you're starting to ask those questions, okay, well, what's going well? What do you enjoy? Then that's exactly where you need to be, and there'll be lots of advice coming forward. I just wanted to mention now a couple of things about thinking about sixth form destinations, and really to kind of give you a few anecdotes, I suppose. So every year pupils leave Bees, of course, and go off and do different things. That might be because they want to do a specific course. It might be because they want to, they're changing locations. And always every year we get some of those pupils back about 2 or 3 weeks in. And I just thought of 3 different pupils that have come back in the last few years that are now finished or finishing off. So Tom and Annie are both here at the moment as pupils. In the upper sixth, they're just finishing. Tom's off to do engineering at Exeter next year, and Annie is going to Manchester to study religion and philosophy. Tom went off to Basvic at the end of year 11 and started there. And in fact, he spent most of the year there before returning to us, having just missing that nurturing and compassionate kind of atmosphere, and also I think the ability just to see his mates every single day at school, rather than kind of maybe meeting when you have lectures at the same time. And Annie, who's off to study philosophy, she went off to a girls' boarding school. Her family actually moved, and so she went to a school nearer them. But again, just found the atmosphere. She really missed that support and nurturing. And these pupils are both very academic pupils, as you can tell by what they're going off to study. It's not that they necessarily needed lifting up in that regard, but I think that being in that support network was really, really valuable. And so I always feel sad when that happens, because I feel like we've failed those pupils at some point, because really, if this was the right place for them, which it was, then that conversation needed to happen early. And so that's why more and more now, as we move through and start our process early with year 10 pupils thinking about sixth form, the main thing that I would emphasise, as I said at the beginning, is the importance of having conversations with teachers, tutors and the sixth form team early on about being honest about what you're thinking and what your plans are and the reasons behind that, and being open to thinking about, okay, well, what do we offer here? How does that compare? And what is it that my child really needs from their experience? Because no, we're not a hot house. We're never going to be getting your pupils in the greenhouse and forcing them like as some sort of pale Spanish tomato grown in December. But it's far from being Lord of the Flies here as well. It's not like we're running feral. We set very high expectations in the sixth form academically, and it is rigorous. And I think that's why pupils enjoy their experience at sixth form, because they are being tested, they are being challenged, and they are seeing themselves develop. Obviously, being in sixth form, one of the reasons why people start to think about what do I want to do and where do I want to go is because there are lots of different options, and some sixth forms operate more like a college, whereby the school is there, the lectures and seminars kind of happen differently to lessons, and you might go in for 2 hours and then leave. And then there are more school-style ones like these, where you have timetabled lessons every single day, and you're in every day, and you're expected to take a full part of that. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the other things involved in sixth form life. So all sixth formers have kind of different privileges to juniors. So sixth formers obviously have their own uniform. They wear kind of business wear essentially. So they're still formal, still preparing to go out into the world of work, but they are able to have a bit more agency over that. And what we've got is really developed over the last few years with feedback from the pupils in the sixth form about what they think is fair and what their expectations are versus what we want as a school. And I think we've got a really inclusive uniform now where pupils are able to select elements. There's no gendered elements of those uniforms, and there is a lot more personalisation that goes on. The other thing that is a real privilege at sixth form is the idea of study periods, and so these are gaps in the timetable where people don't have timetable lessons. These are really important actually because pupils will find that they've got a lot of work, more work maybe than they can do purely in prep time. And it might be that immediately after a lesson, a sixth former needs to sit down and go over what they've studied in that lesson to make sure that they're confident about it, a little bit more like how we use work at university. We do think of sixth form as a bridge between school and university. So having those study periods and learning how to use them properly is something that we spend some time on in sixth form. But they're not always used for work. It might be that you have one before lunch. You can go for early lunch as a sixth former. You can head down to the village shop for your lunch if you wanted to do that. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And that kind of access to facilities with a bit more freedom is something that's really nice about being in the sixth form here. They have the sixth form centre. So during lesson time, that is a workspace. It's a quiet space. But at breaks and lunches, that's a social space, which isn't associated to any particular house. So any people can go in there in the sixth form and socialise. They've got their Costa coffee machine and a little kitchenette that they can use. They're also allowed on the village shops. When they're free. There's no restrictions on that. And they can use the gym. They can use those kinds of spaces freely as well. So there is a real benefit to being on campus here, actually, because there are a lot of lovely things with the sixth form centre, and the gym in particular, which you'd pay a lot of money to access if you were living in a town or a city. So privilege is something that's important in sixth form. I think, as I've kind of touched on already, the idea that we're doing more than just the academic work during the day here. So we have our talks that we get in. We unify all the kind of extra things that we do in the sixth form under a banner called the BEADS Diploma. And the BEADS Diploma essentially is, we sign it off at the end of the year, but really it's for pupils to reflect on regularly with their tutor the skills that they're building as sixth formers. So they're attending workshops and seminars and learning about different things. It could be a visit from a Paralympian, could be a drugs and alcohol safety workshop, could be an employability skills-based workshop. They're logging those in a document. And they've also got space to reflect on different key employability skills that we've taken from the Sutton Trust as the top kind of skills globally that employers are looking for. So looking at things like leadership and communication, looking at their ability to use kind of online tools, looking at their ability to work in a team, and just logging experiences of those things that they've done in the sixth form, so that they can reflect on them and take them away when they apply to jobs and universities. So that's something that's quite, I think, unique about these, that we have that diploma that students work towards across the two years at the school. That part of it is to do volunteering, and what it means is that students come out of here, yes, with excellent grades, but also they're employable, and that is vital in today's world, where if you're an employer watching this and you're thinking when you interview, of course you're looking at the intelligence of your candidate, and that might come through their A-level results, but you're also looking at their ability to communicate and how they're going to fit into your team. And so we really put effort into building that up in the sixth form. I don't want to go on for too long, so really that's kind of a sense of what sixth form life is like at BEADS in a nutshell. I'll follow this up obviously with some slides that you can just look over and compare with what I've said. Just to reiterate then, so obviously at the moment we're kind of at the early stage of those conversations, and you're having conversations at home about where people want to be for sixth form and what they want to do. Please follow those discussions up with tutors, housemasters, teachers and the sixth form team. If you're watching this, it's probably because you weren't able to come in on the Thursday evening where heads of department and the sixth form team were on hand to kind of have those conversations. That doesn't mean you've missed out on those conversations. We're always happy to meet you online or in person if you'd like to do that. And you'll also have the opportunity to meet all of those members of staff in October when we have our open morning. But those conversations are the most important thing about making your decision at sixth form. So I really emphasise that. Please do contact me off the back of this if you would like to have a conversation with me one-to-one before the end of the year, or to set something up for September. Open mornings coming up in October 2023, and we'll write to you with more information about that next term, and that will generate lots more of those conversations. We'll look to take options in December, January, and then once you get your exam results at the end in September 2024, that's when we start to confirm pupils' programs. I'll just address a couple of key things about sort of really common questions that I get, which you might have been wanting to ask if you'd come along, and then I'm going to finish. So often people ask about subjects, both number and combinations of types of courses, and then courses themselves. So most pupils study 3 A-levels or BTECs. They are able to study 4. There are 4 blocks in our timetable. We encourage most pupils to study 3. There are 2 good reasons for that. First of all, universities only make offers to students based on 3 grades, so there's no advantage to having a 4th. And obviously you're splitting your time between 4 instead of 3, which is more demanding. But secondly, the amount of work that pupils are given at sixth form means that for most pupils, 3 A-levels is quite a lot to be getting on with, and therefore they need some of those gaps in the timetable, as I mentioned earlier, those study periods, to be able to review and catch up on that work. So for those reasons, 3 often is better than 4. There's nothing stopping you from taking 4 A-levels or BTECs, and that's a conversation we would have between you as a family and us as a sixth form team, to make sure that was being done for the right reasons. But often students are strong in a number of areas and they don't want to give one up because they enjoy it, and so that's obviously a good reason to do 4. Some people start on 4 subjects because they can't choose, and then we'd encourage them to drop one by October half term at the latest. And that's okay as well, but probably it's advantageous to start the year with the 3 subjects that you definitely want to study. People then often ask what the difference is between A-level and BTEC, and then also whether BTECs are something that perhaps universities don't value or have a different status. I can reassure everybody now that BTECs absolutely have the same status as A-levels now. That's part of the reason why when you apply to university, universities now make an offer based on the points total. So each grade that you get at A-level or BTEC is assigned a points value. So universities offer, okay, you want to go and study English, where you need to get 120 UCAS points, and that's a way of making sure that they're being fair in terms of all the different types of qualifications that people study, because across England and the United Kingdom now there are lots and lots of different types of vocational and academic qualifications which you can use to get to university. So there's no disadvantage to doing BTECs if you're thinking of applying to university. The real thing to think about whether you're studying A-levels or BTECs is the way that you're going to be assessed. So BTECs are coursework heavy, but there is one maybe small exam on them, whereas A-levels, everything is on that exam. So if you thrive under the exam pressure and you know you can perform well, then A-levels will suit the way that you study. BTECs might be more advantageous to you if you're somebody that prefers to work to coursework deadlines, understanding though that you would have deadlines all throughout the year that you're having to meet consistently, and all of those deadlines are contributing to your grade. We don't have as many subjects that you can study at BTEC as you can at A-level, but all of that information is available in the sixth form booklet, which you can get on our website. People often ask me as well about subject combinations. The best piece of advice I can give generally in this kind of forum is that doing the subjects that you're going to be most successful in and that you're going to enjoy. So really looking at your mock results and thinking about where my strengths lie, and within those strong subjects, what do I enjoy? If you've had a bit of a rough time with mocks, if people have found it difficult to prepare, then obviously we'll maybe looking towards the way that they're assessed and whether they suit BTECs, for example, whether the subjects that they haven't done yet at GCSE that they might consider for A-level would be something that I would think about. And then really finally, just a bit of general information. People often ask about the makeup of the sixth form. It's very much similar to across the school as a whole. So we're fairly balanced between boys and girls. There are slightly more boys than girls in the school. And we are about 60% day pupils compared to 40% boarding pupils. We also get a big influx of new pupils. So we'll probably get around 60 new pupils joining the school just for sixth form, which is really nice. So if you people feel like they're coming to the end of a period at the end of year 11 and they maybe were ready for change, that change kind of comes in naturally. So it's a bit like sort of fresh voices, fresh ideas coming into the sixth form and really changing the feel of those houses when that comes in, which is a really nice thing. And we do a lot of work at the start of the year to help induct those new pupils. So it does feel like a new school. It's a sixth form where we set really high academic standards, but there's also that passion and compassion, that nurturing element of B's, which makes it really special to be here in the lower school, carried on in the sixth form, and we still have that fantastic co-curricular programme that we're encouraging pupils towards. In terms of people actually here live, there's not many of you, but if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box now, just while I finish off, and I can answer them live. But if you're watching and recording and you have questions off the back of this that you'd like to ask me directly, please do email me, and we can either set up a chance to speak one-to-one over a video call or in person, or I can get back to you via email. But thank you very much for joining me, and sorry for all that information, but hopefully it's useful to get a bit of a sense of what you can study. I've had a question which is about number of BTECs that you might study. So there's two answers to that. So ideally everybody will study 3 subjects, and you could do 3 BTECs. You could do 2 BTECs, but the way that you would want to do that would be to do one of them as a double BTEC, which is possible. So for sport and for business studies, I know that we do double BTECs, so they do extra units and things on that BTEC you don't do in a single, and that still gives you like equivalent of 3 grades that would help you to apply to university. You could do 2 BTECs in an A level, you could do 1 BTEC and 2 A levels, any combination of that is fine. In terms of studying like just 2 subjects, you would limit yourself in terms of what you might go on and do afterwards, but it might mean that that is the right path for your pupil, and something like a foundation course or kind of like straight into employment might be a good destination for somebody on 2. So hopefully that's answered that question. I'll just leave it for a second in case there are any other questions before we finish. Brilliant. I think that's everything. If anyone has any other questions, please do contact me. But thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to more of you one-to-one in the coming weeks and months. Thanks very much.